prices even higher.
Not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been ripping. It stayed that way for 14 months, and then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last 8 years, under both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt, while so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So former President
Biden,
what do you call that?
Close your mouth, Biden. Don't sit there with your mouth gaping.
You want to extend them.
Don't sit there with your mouth open.
You don't do that.
Facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt. Why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country.
But he was higher in debt.
The tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt.
I don't recall the country moving like never before.
We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something good.
He's taking credit. He's trying to say Biden is riding off of his presidency, but he never did acknowledge
he was riding off Obama's presidency in the beginning, and then
And
he does some shit.
He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country, and I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration.
He's going to repeat that. What he just said this first time, he's going to repeat it all the way through.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America, billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they in fact pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers.
That's right.
They'd raise $500 million.
And then lower our tax rate.
I should say.
Yeah.
Raise theirs and lower ours.
Why we got to pay so much taxes?
Make sure that
How they get 8%? Why do they get 8%?
We got to pay 30.
Oh my God.
Strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with.
I wish he could spit out his words.
With the COVID, excuse me, with dealing with everything we had to do with. Look,
Don't do it, Biden.
We finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Oh,
What did he say?
He's right.
We
He did
finally
beat Medicare. He beat it to
Medicare.
death, and he's destroying Medicare.
Oh,
because
my
all of these people are coming in.
God.
They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security.
It's sorry. He'll come back. He'll come back. He'll come back.
Social Security.
Oh,
Millions and millions of
he
people
was
coming
doing
in.
so
He's
well.
trying to
He
put
was
them
doing
on
kind
Social
of
He was a
well.
little
He will
hoarse.
wipe out
And
Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was
come
right
on,
in the way
Joe.
he
You
finished
got
that
this.
sentence.
Don't
And
you
it's a
worry
shame.
about it. You
What's
got it,
happened to
Joe.
our country in the last 4 years is not to be
He
believed.
just knows all his
Foreign
lies
countries,
very,
our friends
very
are a lot of
well.
people.
He
They
didn't have
cannot
to
believe
study
what happened to
nothing.
The United States of America, we're no longer respected, they
See,
don't
he's
like
gonna
us.
repeat
Yeah.
himself.
We give them everything.
That's
He's
all
gonna
he's gonna
repeat
say.
that every chance he's get. He's gonna say the same thing.
People, what we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us.
Wow,
What
now
this
he's gonna
man
talk
has
about
done
immigration.
Is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look
can't
at
block
this whole question that you're asking, complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put three
Oh
great
my
Supreme
God.
Court
He's
justices
such a
on the
liar.
court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted.
Everybody didn't
I didn't want
that.
it.
No,
Why you say everybody?
I don't know. I don't know who the everybody is. Everybody that looks like him.
I guess.
Aside from Joe, because Joe didn't want it.
Are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought.
I guess they didn't want it there, did
I
they?
would say the same thing.
So everybody didn't want it.
Texas is different. Florida is
Joe's
different.
gotta close
but they're
his
all
mouth.
making their own decisions right now, and right now the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also. And because that has to do with other things.
You gotta
You
get
have to get
elected.
elected.
The problem they have is they're radical.
Yeah, so
because
that's-
they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby.
What is
What
he
happened is we
talking?
brought it back to the states.
What is he
and the
talking
country
about?
is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Nobody can kill a baby.
President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided. Supported Roe. And that's this idea that they were all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states. Let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in, they talk about that. But here's the deal: there's a lot of young women being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
There have been
Oh,
many
Joe.
young
Why do
women
they cut?
murdered
Why do they cut him
by
so
the same
off so
illegal
quick?
blacks that come across our border.
Why does it seem
We
like
have
Trump
a
gets
border
talked
that's the
way
most
longer?
dangerous place anywhere in the world. Considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he
Joe
opened
is
it
not
up,
doing
and these
well.
killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. And in many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which frankly they didn't. But they would have had, everybody wanted it brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives
Many
it a
presidents
vote
have
of the
tried.
people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal
tried?
scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion,
Every
President
legal
Biden,
scholar?
7 states, I'll let you do that, this is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I support Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. First time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician is making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month. And
Ain't nobody taking the
Nobody's
life.
doing
That's
that.
not an abortion.
Why does he-
Stupid.
Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody
Is he
wants that to
insane?
happen. Democrat,
Why do they
Republican,
say
nobody
this?
wants it.
No one's doing this,
That's the
sir.
craziest thing.
That Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only a woman's life is in danger. She's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period, period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want.
That's not
We don't
true.
think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals.
If the woman's going to
For
die.
51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do, in fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board, at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden,
Oh,
a
they cut
record
his
number
mic.
of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly, by the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. It's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. All he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now.
How do you know? Do the terrorists come through and say, well, yep, I'm a terrorist?
I know.
How do we know? How does he know this?
And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation.
How does he know these are from insane asylums?
In that final couple
Why
of
does he
months of
say
my
this stuff?
presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who was great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in
Thank you, President
caravans.
Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything across the border is one who came along and killed three, and his administration killed an Al-Qaeda person come in his administration, killed three American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through with the idea they're emptying their prisons. We're welcoming these people. That's simply not true. There's no data to support what he's saying.
At all. That's what I'm saying. Where's he getting this stuff from? He's a
President Trump,
fucking
staying on
liar.
the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, unquote. Does that mean that you will deport
What does that
every
mean?
undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Just 1 second, he said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world, and it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with a bad border, including hundreds of thousands of people dying, and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the union, because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border. And because of his ridiculous,
Every state is now
insane,
border
stupid
state.
policies,
No, it's not,
people are
sir.
coming in and they're killing our citizens.
And
At
no,
a
they're
level
not.
we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen before. And you're reading it like these 3 incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and he just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels.
Why is he getting? He is getting a lot more freaking
Our
time.
veterans are on the
Seems like
street.
it.
They're dying because he doesn't care
Where's
about
I'm
our
gonna put
veterans.
the
He doesn't
timer
care
on.
about
I'm
the
gonna
military
see.
at all. And he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He's
still
gotten
going.
rid of all the things that I approved. Choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border. But allowing all of these people to come
Ain't
in.
that the
President
pot
Biden
called the
Sad
kettle
day
red?
for America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single
Alexa,
thing
set
said
timer.
why. Every single one. For example,
Siri,
I
set
think they're a
timer.
hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it.
Let me see.
Their families have it.
Stopwatch. You
Yeah,
stopwatch.
stopwatch.
Whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all
Siri,
being
open
covered.
stopwatch.
And he opposed, his group opposed that. We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq.
It's too
He
late.
had to land next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioma.
Why is he responding to what he said about veterans? Why didn't he go back to the border? How come you're not?
And I spoke to
The
all
question
of
was
our
about
heroes
immigration,
of the
right?
I went to the World War
He
II
just totally
Secretary.
shifted the
World
whole
War
thing.
Secretary refused to go to
He did not
Extended
answer
his
how he was
four-star
going to do
general.
his immigration
He told me,
thing.
"I don't want to go
Biden
in
should have
there.
doubled
I
down
told
on
them,
that.
Suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
He's
President
been
Trump?
trying to. That's part
First of all,
of.
that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him.
Nobody
We had
made it
19
up.
people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taking better care. I'm so glad this came up.
You
And he brought
you
it up.
talk about
There's
you
nobody
talk
that's
about
taking better care of
5-star
our soldiers than
family
I
or
have.
gold
No,
star
no.
families.
We
We've
said
heard
you
you
do
talk
that.
about it. It's not.
And others say
far-fetched.
suckers and
He
losers.
said, "I like."
19 people
He told
that said-
he
And
told
John
the case.
McCain.
I like the guys that
It was
don't
made
that
up
didn't
by
get
him, just
captured.
like Russia was made up. Just like the 51 intelligence agents.
None of
are
it was made up.
Just like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking. It's the same thing.
Oh, I
51
should've-
intelligence
damn
agents
it, I
said
didn't touch
that the laptop was Russia disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
4-star general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said it. Period. That's number one. And number two, the idea the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. And they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right, thank you so much.
Let's move to the topic of foreign policy. I want to begin
only
with
talked for
Russia's
29
war.
Well, you gotta see
against
when they
Ukraine,
ask him the
which is
question.
now in its third year. Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So let's get that straight. And they like me more than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, a president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers, you can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, that when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned, and so he's got no love lost. But he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars
over a minute now. I thought they were giving them a minute.
We lost 13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take this was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream.
He's not answering the question.
He never would have invaded Ukraine. Never. Just like Israel would have
Well, the question was, is it acceptable?
It's over 1.5 minutes now.
You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything. No money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
President Biden?
I've never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Look, the fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president. They attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where, if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want, and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. Listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish, Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I never said that.
for 1 minute, I just want to go back to my original question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine?
No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
We'll do it now.
Before he takes office.
The fact
That was
is
under
that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire. Not just a piece, he wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then do you think he'll stop there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if in fact he does what he says and walks away, by the way, all that money we give Ukraine are for weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why we're strong.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle East. In October, Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one,
Okay, we have
everyone from the United Nations Security Council, straight through the G7 to the Israelis, and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan they put forward. Which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas. Number one, they're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened? In Israel, we're finding the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so there are 2 different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas. Greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for using certain weapons among population centers.
Just getting back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent 100 billion, or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any, they were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us.
Nobody has ever said he's done a great job. Like everybody ever
you got to ask these
we
people
only
to
hear
put up
him
the
say
money.
that,
We're over
and his
$100
stupid
billion more
bonehead
spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one who wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President Biden, you have a minute.
God.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. You going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that we have, our strength lies in our alliances as well. It may be a big ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. See what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea, because they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
President Trump, just to follow up, would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations. Because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this, I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question, would you guard us against Russia? At a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time. And they said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January 6, 2021. After you rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who is a documentary filmmaker, they say, but she's saying, oh no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor in writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing, turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see, I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, you can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up to Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to keep their sentences and say that no. He went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court, and they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He didn't do a damn thing, and these people should be in jail, and they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out, and now he says that he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that there could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
What they've done to some people that are so innocent You ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities, you go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there, with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that, they saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing.
Peacefully what?
The
we're going to fight. We're going to go down to the Capitol, and we're going to fight like hell.
Out of office,
right?
And Democrats, all Democrats.
We're going to fight like hell peacefully.
Destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now. And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who were convicted, deserves to be convicted. The idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows, occupied offices, turned over desks, turned over
terrorism,
statues.
domestic terrorism.
That those people are patriots? Come on. When I asked him the first two debates we had, first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boy? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation.
Whatever.
My
That's not
retribution
what he
is going to be
said.
success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is
And he ain't
convicted.
running for president.
Probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor, otherwise you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor, having to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you, sir. You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has spoken like that before. Number three, the crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean,
ooh, bring up the dirt, Joe. Bring up the dirt.
The morals on alley cat.
Oh,
Give you a minute, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case.
Well, at least he did
that
that.
case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did?
Yeah.
My poll numbers went up way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
God.
The more they know about what he's done, yes.
Oklahoma,
The more they know
they
about what
have
he's
to
done.
require the
And
Bible
there's a lot
be
more coming.
taught
He's got a
in
lot of
public
cases down the
school.
road coming out. He's got a whole
You have to
range
what?
of issues he has to
The
face.
Bible's going to be
I don't know
taught
what
in
the juries
public
will do,
schools
but
effective
I do
immediately in
know he has a real
Oklahoma.
problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you heard any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? You ever hear any president say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang when back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother, and they asked him. They said, "What do you think of those people? The people the ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones," he said, "I think they're fine people on both sides." What American president would ever say Nazis coming out of fields carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas were fine people? And this is the guy who says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are. The good things Hitler's done, that's what he said. This guy has no sense of American democracy.
President Trump.
Jake, both of you know that story has been totally wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on that story. He just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency, he's without question the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it. It's all over the place. Every anchor has
Who the hell made up the Charlottesville story?
Debunked it.
He
And
said
just
there
the
was
other
5
day,
people on both sides. I
You
saw it with my
said
own fucking eyes.
Nonsense story. He knows that, and he didn't.
I saw him say
Why are
it.
they not?
An excuse to run.
President Biden.
And debunk. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran. I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw it with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people.
You saw it
That's
all.
right.
We
Just
saw
keep
people occupying
keep
it.
doing,
His own
keep
vice
saying
president.
that, keep
But for the
saying
reason
that.
why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time.
He
So
hires
why?
the best people.
Why? They know him well.
And how many
They're
of those are in
why
jail
they
now, in
endorse
prison
him?
now?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
I don't know, what the hell is he saying? Is he saying he never said that now? What the hell?
I know.
I'm like, bro,
He
we were
said-
there, we were all alive, and we were watching.
He's saying that.
We're watching.
Biden said that when I saw that, I knew I had to run for president. And Trump is saying he's lying. That's not why he ran for president.
But he said something about that story's been debunked.
Yeah.
It hasn't been debunked. He did say there are fine people on both
No,
sides.
I know. He's not addressing that.
But
Trump
what
never
was he?
addressed that.
What was he saying? What
Because
story was debunked?
Biden said, when I saw what happened in Charlottesville with the girl getting killed and these people walking around with tiki torches and shit, right? And he said they were fine people that did it. He said that's when I knew I had to run for president.
Some are much worse than others.
And then Trump said he didn't run for president because of that. He didn't do that. He did it because it was his last chance to run for president. So it's so stupid, right?
I get that part, but he also said that story's been debunked. What story was debunked?
Biden says that story has been debunked.
Trump said that story has been debunked.
I know there was nothing debunked about any of that.
And that's why Biden came back and said, we saw it with we heard you, and we saw it with our own eyes. You said that.
Yeah.
Sir?
That's just a strategy. You just be saying any old thing to see if it sticks. It's always been like that.
Delivered and set up in any room.
It's horrible.
Safa, luxury mattresses made of.
I just get so tired of it all. I just get so damn tired of it.
20 seconds a week to lose 20% of your weight in a year with diet and exercise. That's the power of GLP-1s through Ro.
Okay,
Connect with a provider today at ro.co/20.
Take control of your health by
come
boosting
on.
your force field, the immune system. With the Aura Ring, you can listen to your body's signals and raise your defenses. Aura tells you when your temperature is higher than normal, how to improve your sleep, or if your heart rate shows signs of stress, so you can decide to push yourself or to lie low. Live smarter, stronger, healthier with the Aura Ring.
California's decision makers set electric rates. Their policies raise gas prices, grocery costs, and housing fees. Which can you afford? No state has a higher cost of living than California.
There are 17 million renters in California, and corporate landlords bully them all. The California Apartment Association uses the huge bankroll they collect from sky-high rents to intimidate every apartment.
It's on Twitter.
And this November, they have their sights set on silencing the AIDS Healthcare Foundation with a bruising ballot initiative. Nobody likes a bully, not even their mother. Vote no this November to deliver a knockout punch and teach these corporate landlords a lesson they'll never forget.
17 states have a Democratic governor and a Democratic legislature. They all have energy policies. But California adds the most, $1.21 to every gallon of gas.
Welcome back to the CNN presidential debate live from Georgia. Let's talk about persistent challenges you both faced in your first terms and you'd certainly face again in a second term. President Biden, while Black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, Black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and Black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
To acknowledge you made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there's more small Black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of Black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're trying to find housing for Black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporate organizations that collude to keep people out of their houses. And in addition to that, we find that the impact on the choice that Black families have to make relative to child care is incredibly difficult. When we did the first
my
piece
God,
of
we
legislation
all
passed,
don't.
it was able to reduce child care costs, or cut them in half.
I know.
In half. We got to make sure we provide for child care costs. We got to make sure, because when you provide those child care protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
See, but the question they asked, right, was something that he has no control over.
I understand.
Why are Black people making less than white people?
Inflation is still hurting them.
Right?
For example, I provided for the idea that
Why?
any Black family, first-time home buyer, should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those Black families and those Black individuals provided,
my
I think they got
God.
student loans that were ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing, doctor, and anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years and their student debt, all the rest is forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
But that's not
And he
just black
caused the
families.
inflation. He's blaming inflation, and he's right, it's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody.
Wait a minute, I thought we were
It's
doing
killing
better
people.
than
They
ever
can't
before.
buy groceries anymore.
I
They
thought we
can't-
were all
you
doing
look
better
at the
than ever
cost of food,
before.
where it's doubled.
That's
tripled,
that's what
quadrupled.
one of his
They
supporters
can't
said.
live.
Yeah.
They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do was leave
was
it alone.
perfect.
He destroyed it with his Green New Scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now. And it could be 18.
What
it
are
could be
black
18,
jobs?
20 million people. They're taking black
I don't know.
jobs. And
Yeah,
they're
what are
taking
black
Hispanic
jobs?
And you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you, President Biden.
What are black
There was no
jobs?
inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 50% unemployment. He decimated the economy. Absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation at the time. There were no jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals who were in all communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they had health insurance. We have covered, with the ACA has increased, I made sure that they're $8,000 per person in a family to get written off for health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again. And they're going to try again if they win. You find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity and making sure people have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on, but in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous
not articulating well at all.
malfeasance in the way he handled
He
the
is not
pandemic.
Thank you.
articulating well
Another
at all.
persistent challenge is the climate crisis. 2023 was the hottest year in recorded history, and communities across the country are confronting the devastating effects of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Well, let me just go back to what he said about the police, how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. In the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name. And he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it, and now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job, great senator from South Carolina. He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But when you see these millions of people pouring into our country and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet, it's a disaster.
You've 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever, and we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been.
These two
The idea
people. I don't know
that
what
he said is true. I've passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history. In history, we find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges. I came up with $50 billion
Obama,
for
come back.
HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges.
Obama
Because
back.
they don't have the kind of contributors
Michelle,
they have.
somebody.
Build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing any white student can do.
Oh my
He doesn't have the money, and now
God.
they'll be able to get those
Freaking people.
jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing.
Bottom line is, we have the two.
He ain't did a damn thing for clean water.
Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff
Close
of the
your mouth,
United
Joe.
States. And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones. It was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it, and it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage, I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals.
Oh
and they're
my
gonna be taking over
gosh.
Social
Nobody's
Security.
taking.
He is destroying social
Y'all don't
Security,
even want the
Medicare,
public
and
schools.
Medicaid.
What is he talking about?
I have no idea.
The
I
idea is that
I don't know.
we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything? We're not able to, the United States can't get this under control. One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're making significant progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We've made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps. There's thousands of young people who learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
So every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security
Let's talk
provides
about
a
that.
critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors
Oh, he's
will
gonna
see
bring
their
it back.
benefits cut. in
Trump's
just
gonna
over
bring it back to
10
immigration.
years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right
Period.
now, everybody
Period.
making under $170,000 pays 6%
I want my
of their
motherfucking money.
of their paycheck every single time they get a paycheck.
They're talking about
It's
cutting
the
it in
first one
10
they
years.
get.
By the time we
18
get to
years.
our
Yeah,
shit gonna be reduced. Get the fuck out of here.
Everybody, they pay, the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I've not raised the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent, but the biggest thing we'll do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanted to cut Social Security and Medicare, both times. And if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that he, I believe, supports, is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And under the ACA, as I said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they in fact are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is, we're in a situation where we talk about education for black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants, another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 towards the tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies.
Man, is that's
so
the
many
kettle.
We mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia.
Wow.
Ukraine, and everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation.
Oh my God.
Trump is calling somebody else a liar.
It's a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it. Because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security.
Are they really?
Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in.
What's that got to do with
These
it?
people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what
Oh
he's
my
doing.
God.
It's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
President Biden.
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one who acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it, number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world, the reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is,
I'm sure.
he doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the.
Let's talk about child care.
Drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put him there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that Afghan.
So what about the question, Trump?
Horror show.
He ain't got nothing on it.
Moment in the history of our country.
He ain't got nothing on that question.
He don't care about making child
I
care.
know, he don't give a damn about making child care
In the history
affordable.
of the world, did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from mental
Totally.
institutions? Did you
He
fire
keeps
them?
Not
saying
even
that
on it.
over and over again.
Repeating himself every time
That's what
without
he wants
answering
to
the
do.
questions.
You and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant. He wants open
So
borders.
he's not going to do
He wants
anything
our
to make
country
child care
either
more
be
affordable.
destroyed, or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He's the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump.
He said
We're the most
that.
admired
He said that
country
4
in the
years
world.
ago.
with the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody, number one. Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up, go online. 159 or 58, don't know the exact number, presidential historians, they've had meetings and they voted who's the worst president
Who's the worst?
in American history. One through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact. That's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea that he is doing anything to deal with child care, he did for virtually nothing to child care. We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work. And we should encourage businesses to have
Thank you, President
child care
Biden.
facilities.
President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make child care more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have Poland, we have other.
He don't give a shit about child care. He doesn't care about child care.
You
You
don't
got
know
a
nothing about
baby
it.
or you need
You
child
don't know
care.
nothing about
Trump
it.
is not your
I don't
man.
want to talk about child care.
Trump is not your man. He's not your man for child care.
Yeah, if you
Please
got
know
kids,
I guess we know that.
You're not gonna get it.
He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times.
Who
He
said
wants
that?
Tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians.
He
talking
said
about
people
back
that make
taxes.
over $400,000.
As I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst
Wow.
president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about, he's increased the tariff, he will increase the taxes on middle class people. I said I never raised the tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming into the country, you know what the economy
Costs
said?
more.
That's going to cost
Because of his tariffs.
Yes, tariffs do
All the
that.
tariffs, back when he raised all the tariffs,
See the difference.
Yep.
everything went higher.
And all the things.
A damn piece of
Everything went
You
higher.
go to
Wood, you want to
Home,
put
yeah,
a
you
new
go to Home
fence.
Depot buy some wood and it was freaking twice as much.
You screwed up
You
everything.
somehow helped the middle
So-
class.
Houses.
Middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion.
What
for
the
next
new
2
houses
years.
being built
This is
was
gonna
stopped or
Yeah.
slowed tremendously under his leadership, and now there are houses all over the place being brought
We
up,
have not, in
built
fact,
all over the place.
made any contact, any progress with China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you,
We're the
President
highest.
Biden.
We lost our-
Thank you,
If
President
your
Biden.
only
Let's
measure
introduce
of
this
how well the
pandemic
economy is
impacting millions
doing
of
is the
Americans.
cost
For
of
those you
eggs
have made a
or
top priority
gas,
for
you're
Trump,
missing
the
everything.
You
opioid
missing it.
crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other
Oh
opioids.
God, he's
What will
gonna
you
go
do
back
help
to the
Americans
border
right
and
now in the
they're
throes of
coming in
addiction
from insane
or struggling
asylums.
to get the treatment they need?
Oh my God.
We now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy.
God, here
We have the largest deficit with China.
He's not going to
He
answer
gets
any
paid
more
by China.
questions.
He's a Manchurian.
He's not going to
candidate. He
answer
gets
any more
money from China.
questions.
No.
So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so
I'm
much
noticing
money
you're
with the
not
tariffs
answering
that I imposed
questions.
on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous, and we saved our steel industries.
Why
and
don't
there's more
you?
to
They
come.
should mute him if
He
they're
hasn't
not
got
going to
that.
answer the question.
I know.
Mute him.
That's what that should
Because if you're not going to answer the
But he's
questions,
got the
then
largest deficit in the history of our country. And he's
why
got the
ask them
worst-
questions if they can
the worst
just
situation
ignore
with
them?
China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them
He
to
doesn't
do
have.
what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction?
They shouldn't allow him
who are
to do
struggling
that.
To get the treatment they need.
Jake, we were doing very well in addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country, in any way.
Oh,
And then we
Jesus
had to get
H.
tough. And
Christ.
it was the drugs pouring across the border were it started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible.
That's not got to do with addiction. It has nothing to do with addiction.
We were getting very low numbers.
He's talking
Very,
about
very
the
low
drugs
numbers.
coming in.
Yeah.
The
But
numbers-
people,
have you seen the
this is
numbers
about
now?
treatment
It's
they
not only
need,
18 million
right?
people that
Yeah.
are
Americans who are
because
addicted to
they-
opiates struggling
Yeah.
to the treatment they need.
Talk about
What are you going to do to help them?
Yeah.
The numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women
Well, we knew.
coming across our border.
In women?
The worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad.
Oh,
But the number of drugs coming across our border
he
now
had,
is the largest
he had
we've ever had
87
by far.
seconds left.
President Trump, thank you, President Biden.
Fentanyl and byproducts fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl. These big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of all people at the border. And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues and said, don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically. No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines.
To save
We're coming
people's
down
lives.
very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl, and Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do.
Turn
We
around and
need
say,
those
can you
machines.
care about the American
Thank you,
people
President Biden.
enough
President
to
Trump,
call
again, the question
these
is about
people off,
Americans
and so
in
we
throes
can
of
pass
addiction right
this
now,
bill?
struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, because this does pertain to it. He ended remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made a catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done. Hard negotiations with Mexico. I got it all
What
figured
is
out.
the
Neither
answer
of them are
the
gonna
fucking
do it.
question?
$6 billion for every time we says a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter. I think a good guy, and he's over there because Putin is laughing at this
I
guy.
think too
probably
many
asking
really
for
good
billions
people
of
who
dollars
could lead this country
for the reporter.
are going to
I will
come
have
this.
him out very
I think
quickly.
Jasmine
As soon as I take
Crockett
office, before I take office, I said
could be
by literally,
could possibly be
as soon as I
a
win the election,
good
I will have that
presidential
reporter out.
candidate.
He should have had him out a long time ago. But Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases where he paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people.
Okay, well, you know he doesn't
essentially
give a
nothing.
damn about people addicted to
Thank you, President
drugs.
Trump. Dan?
Let's turn to concerns that voters
He doesn't
have
care about
this
child
year.
care, helping you with your child
President
care,
Biden,
or
you would
helping
be 86
fellow
Yeah.
Americans
at the
with
end of your
drug
second term.
addiction problems.
How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized as being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record, look at what I've done. Look, I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought an awful lot of people, the whole idea of computer chips. We used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and then bring home a product. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States. And guess what? Those fabs, they call it, that to build these chips, those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans
Who's
all
got
over,
these
from all over
jobs?
the world.
Where are the
President
people with
Biden,
the
you have
jobs?
40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
And what's a
Yeah,
fab?
The
Indians.
idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done.
Not
We're
really.
the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us. All of our allies and those who he calls up to, from Kim Jong-un, we sent love letters to, and Putin, etc., they don't want to screw around with us.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions, he couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them.
Of course
Dr.
you did.
Ronnie Jackson, who's a White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they'd never seen anybody ace them.
Thank you.
Oh my
President
God.
Biden.
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what you're.
He doesn't know how tall he
Just
is.
take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to drive a contest to him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. And by the
What?
way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Let's
Oh
stop
my
fucking-
God! Ay, 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 ay.
Who gives a fuck about your golf game?
Oh, Biden, you don't have to take his
I know,
bullshit and
stupid
just
ass.
say, no, that's not important.
God bless you, stopped him.
You will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable.
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable.
Well, you shouldn't have
And
to,
if
but
you
you
would see my
caused it.
statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the
Oh
speech I
my
made,
God.
in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to, and I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered
Okay.
in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility. not mine.
Okay,
She
they
said that
they
loud
like
and
to
clear.
just change
But the answer is,
history
if the
like
election is fair,
in
free,
like
and
almost
Yeah.
real
unfair,
It
time.
doesn't even matter
and
what
I'll
you
tell you
see.
something.
It doesn't
I
matter.
wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment
You
because
can
I wouldn't have
still
been his
do
political
it.
opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being
Really?
here. The only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him, they don't fear him, they have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is attack on all, a required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done, what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful peace because of the people, not me, it's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because of our own safety as a state. And again, You want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins?
God.
Just to finish what he said.
Just stop asking questions.
Just say no.
Stop asking questions. Just go here.
Just
you can
say
say
no.
whatever you want to say.
From Obama and Biden, they took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. Not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia. Because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people.
He was just waiting for your second term so he could have it.
They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were
President Trump,
president.
the question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week.
Oh, he's always says that.
But
He's been saying he's going to have a news conference on it in a week.
It would be much easier for me to do that. Then I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else.
We would be very happy for you to go someplace else. We don't want your help.
No political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea if you lose again, you accepted anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back with more of the CNN presidential debate live from Georgia.
Well, there you have it.
He had two fiery moments.
Okay.
Get the news you need.
How about this for an earnings
Wow.
In 5 minutes or less.
This debate, I don't know, is comical. I think 3 questions that were asked to Trump have been answered out of how many questions?
With Viking. Unpack one.
He's been asked quite a few questions. He only answered about maybe 3 of them. He keeps repeating himself, going back to the same thing. Biden, it seems like he's starting to wake up now. Maybe the
well, his voice is hoarse. I think.
Yeah,
I
his
think he
voice
was
is
probably
hoarse.
doing all the practicing and all that.
And the stuttering is an
and the
issue.
stuttering.
But the way he was looking at one point, he was like,
Let's have a conversation. It's unlike anywhere else.
"Oh my God,
Streaming exclusively on Max.
this is
I spent
crazy.
my career working in tech.
Why do we have to do this? Why couldn't they get somebody better than Biden?
Where the U.S. currently leads the world.
Why didn't he just
American
step
researchers are
down?
making exciting new discoveries, and U.S. companies are investing billions in AI
I don't know why they
solutions
couldn't
that
just
will
step
strengthen small
aside
businesses.
and let somebody
Foreign
who's
competitors
young,
like China
with
will surpass
vitality
America
and
in
vigor.
Uh-huh.
Our leaders need to
To
protect
talk shit to. They could have got they could have got
HCM is a serious
Freaking,
heart condition affecting as many as 1 in 200 people.
what's the name?
But
Jon Stewart.
Miriam said we don't. Our generation.
I still felt tired on the beta blocker.
So I talked to my cardiologist.
hasn't
Treatment advances
held the
may
presidential
seem
office. Nobody in our
It
generation
was a breakthrough for me.
that conversation was big for me.
has
Talk to your
successfully
cardiologist today and visit
run for president.
Obama.
He's not.
He is.
He's on the tail end of the boomers.
Well, he's what?
I know, but
6 years older than
I'm
me.
talking about technically wise.
Well, I don't give fuck the name of a generation. Shit, it's still the same generation. We grew up in the same motherfucking decades.
Okay.
God damn, when was he born? 1958?
I'm just going by the cutoff.
Well, that generation shit don't make no freaking difference. It's stupid.
But he's the only one then, even still bad.
He did damn good too.
Shit, we
He
got all
won and
these
he did 2 terms.
old ass people.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't know why they got it.
Decades who ain't got it, really don't
$44 a month.
have skin in the game anymore because
1.99% APR on select certified
they just
pre-owned
don't.
models. Get your dream car now.
They don't have to
and
live
enjoy
with their
the
car
holiday
with
weekend.
very long.
Visit us at Mercedes-Benz of Stockton
Gosh,
today.
this debate.
This debate is gonna kill me.
It's very hard to watch.
How long is this debate?
I hope it's over now. They were only supposed to have
90 minutes, right?
two commercial breaks.
Yeah. Isn't it only 90 minutes still? It's like 85 on the clock.
It's not very far.
Go to
We're going 120 minutes?
God dang. I need coffee, but it's
It's
too
now
late
time for
for
the
coffee.
candidates to deliver their closing statements.
Oh, closing
As
statements.
Thank God.
by a
Closing
coin toss.
statements.
We're going to begin with you,
Oh,
President.
they're gonna go Biden go first, and then Trump's gonna ramble on, say the same thing he's been saying through the whole thing.
From the debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience, or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that
I do
said,
not.
nobody making under $400
I don't.
had a single penny
Not fair at all.
increase in their
It
taxes.
took all half of my
And if I'm
freaking
elected, that'll be the case again.
money.
But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit, number one. He's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did, when, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior, all along, or it's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. We're going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for child care. We're going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems.
You can turn that off.
For people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation.
Goodbye.
Bye, y'all. We're looking at the closing statements.
You have 2 minutes for
Biden won.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax.